obviously, right? And most recently, I had a really interesting conversation with a real Star Wars aficionado. And I don't usually do that because honestly, for the most part, I just don't like to have combative discussion with real diehard Star Wars guys. Like, because, like, these guys be knowing everything. Like, literally, man, you want to talk about a fandom? These guys be all over their fandom, man. They really, really do. Like, nobody will tear your ass apart bet more than a Star Wars fan, right? Like, obviously, right? And I mean that. So unless I'm really prepared to do like a deep, deep dive on it, I don't even mess with it. You guys notice, like, increasingly, I just haven't really done a lot of Star Wars ever. Like, right? Even though I love it. Like, I'm an OG, I'm a vet. I saw the first film when I was like literally a child. Like, I went and saw the first film when I was a child. So I remember like the opening day, right? I've read extensively, like I've read a ton of their books, right? I've been down with it, right? I've been into the show. I've been into the series or the franchise or whatever we want to call it, or the lore, right? I guess it's gone into that. It's not just, that, it's also lore. So I was talking with this cat the other day, and you guys might have seen it if you follow the channel. If not, go check it out. But basically, it was like, Darth Vader as he is now towards the end versus Anakin Skywalker, the young version of himself. And who would I think was actually the more powerful? Who actually wins in the fight, right? Like, not even wins a fight, but just comparing the two. And I think there were some good things said on both sides, but we got to remember a couple of things. So I'm going to talk about the dark side of the Force a lot today because I think there's a lot that, that I could say about this. So the first thing about it is kind of understanding that the dark side of the Force is a corrosive force. It is not like a rejuvenating force. It is not like a stabilizing force. None of that stuff. Like, you owe the dark side of the Force forever. Like, I know they always talk like, yeah, you got to master it and whip it in line. But the reality is, like, you don't. Like, you cannot do it with the dark side. So first, I wanted to kind of go through what my parameters for what actually showing dark side mastery actually means, right? So let's talk about what it actually means to master the dark force, right? What mastery actually is. Because a lot of times when we hear fandom talk about it, they kind of take a couple of little things and condense it into like one big category. If they see some enormous power, if they see you whoop somebody powerful's ass, if they see you survive some extraordinary punishment, then automatically, like, you're a master. But power and mastery are not necessarily the same things. So a person can literally be extremely powerful while losing control of every part of themselves. And that's where you got to watch with the dark side of the Force. It's like, it's getting some from you, like it's extracting a toll. So we have to kind of separate this out. So I went by a couple of things I wanted to focus on. Now, the first is obviously a big one, and it's your combat skill, right? Like, how well, let me do this real quick. Because I do like to have it is 100% combat skill. How well can you ultimately fight, right? Like, when it I didn't do that. So if we look at how well do you actually fight, and we talk about, say, Vader, obviously this guy is like all world, right? He is absolutely, an extreme fighter, right? Like, we don't have to guess that about him. Where'd you go? Oh, I don't know if you're here. Okay. We don't have to guess that. We could look at Vader's actual power, his actual feats, and it's kind of indispensable, right? So I've never sat back and said Vader's not powerful. He's one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy that he resides in, right? Like, we can get that. He's an exceptionally powerful being. That's not the same as being a master of the Force, which I don't think you are, right? Mastery of combat does not mean you've mastered yourself outside of combat. A person can be completely disciplined on the battlefield and psychologically chaotic everywhere else. I would say that's a very strong sign of who Darth Vader is. So historically, we've seen some very powerful people who desires or their own insecurity. So a lot of times you can be powerful. So combat is discipline, mastery, but it does not guarantee that you're mastered yourself. That's the first thing I'd say if we start talking about, just force mastery, like what that actually means when they're like, oh yeah, you've kind of mastered yourself, right? Like that's not actually what that means. So with Darth Vader or Anakin or whatever we want to call him, this guy has been like, he's seen as much like organized warfare as I can imagine. He and Obi-Wan had a pretty incredible run. If you go and look back at the stuff that they did. Why are you there and not? Okay, that's not. You're not supposed to be. Let me remove you, right? I'm trying to get this. I don't know why. Let's see. Which one are you? Are you 3 now? No. So you're not 3. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get this so I can have my captions. I don't know why I like it so much, but I do. Right. I'm gonna go back and see if this one works right now. Come on. All right, that's it right there. And let me clean this up for you guys so you don't have to see all the junk here, right? I'm sorry, I'm just getting this thing up here. It just gives me my captions on screen. I just got a thing for it, man. So when I talk about Vader, like back to my topic, is that, we give him a lot of credit for stuff I don't know that he necessarily proves to us in terms of like having mastery over himself. Like you master, obviously you have great control of, the galactic empire, right? You've shown yourself the ability to command an army. This guy's an above board pilot. Like his skill set's pretty complete. But Vader is actually a mess where it really matters the most, and that's kind of inside, like his mastery of himself. Vader gets played harder than anyone else I've ever seen. I've never seen anyone have everything and lose it as spectacularly as Vader and end up burnt out. You were a handsome young guy with a beautiful wife who was sitting on the Jedi Council. You weren't a master yet. We get that. That was bothering you. You also didn't become a master when you went over here to the dark side of stuff, right? You didn't become that. So mastery of combat does not mean you have mastery of yourself. And I think Vader shows that pretty clearly. Now, the second obvious category is mastery of the Force abilities, which right off the bat, we know where Vader is. We're going to talk about some other people. But this includes like telekinesis, precognition, physical enhancement, mental domination, force lightning, draining life, and other abilities associated with the dark side. Now he is unquestionably one of the most dangerous force users that has existed in all time, right? There's not a lot of people that are even on Vader that have been on Vader's level. I mean, it's a very small group of guys who are actually, kind of above him, right? So we get that about Vader, like we get that. But obviously, like he can with an army, it's unstoppable. He's unquestionably a powerful being. Now, here's the thing: there are some other powerful force users, if that's kind of the ranking. Bane possessed enormous destructive ability, far outstripping Vader's. Nihilus can consume life on a planetary scale, and Sidious is capable of feats that very few Force users can survive, much less reproduce. So once again, the size of the power is not telling us who is actually controlling any part of it, right? We can't really say that. So Nihilus is probably the best example of it, right? His ability to consume life is extraordinary, but his hunger itself is a compulsion. He doesn't have any control of it, right? He has to do this. So that's really the thing, right? He is no longer simply choosing when to use the power. He must feed. So at that point, like, who's really in control? Is that mastery? Like, massive feats. Vader's never touched anything like consuming the entire life of a planet, but also we look at it and we see like there is no control. Nihilus is literally a slave to this desire now, right? This desire to keep on eating, right? Like that's who he is, right? So we can see that about him, and it gets scary. It's a pretty scary story. Then the last part. So if you have something like power and you can't ever stop using it, you might understand the mechanics, but you're not in control with your relationship with it. It consumes you. Like whenever you use the Force or submit yourself to the Force, you're giving up a lot of your life. Like it's going to get you, right? Like we get that. So then we look at the other, one of the other extensions of Sith power, and that's been through political and institutional control. So if a dark side user can turn personal power over control of the reality around them, the world around them. And this is where Sidious vastly separates himself from every Sith. He doesn't simply defeat individuals. He destroys the entire republic from within. He reorganizes the entire galaxy around himself, controls military institutions, and makes his personal will into imperial law. Now, Vader commands fleets, he commands armies, governors, inquisitors, and nearly everyone he encounters. His authority, however, stops with Sidious, right? Sidious is his boss. He's enormously powerful within the imperial system, but he doesn't own that power, right? He serves the man who does. And this creates an important distinction between fear and being free, right? Vader can walk into a room, and if he walks into a room, everybody's going to bow down. Everyone's going to be like, oh no, he has authority over millions of people. But we all know at the end of the day, call your boss, right? We know that. Call your boss, right? This is above your pay grade. Someone can really say that to Vader, and it'd be true. Now, the fourth part, and this is where I think it starts to, a lot of people neglect this, and it's emotional self-command. Now, this is a lot of Force users are skipping over this part. Can a person experience fear, grief, anger, humiliation, love, and loss without being controlled by those emotions? Now, dark side philosophy actually, sees emotion as strength. And it's not entirely false. It's actually kind of true. It can produce focus at an extremely high level, endurance, speed, aggression, and eagerness to fight, right? So all things you can need if you have to get out somebody. They absolutely saw that. But using the emotion is not the same as mastering the emotion. So if deliberately calling on anger to accomplish something and then can release it forward, then that's say you controlling anger. But if you need to remain angry in order to function or in pain, then I have to constantly say you're constantly reopening wounds, you're reliving losses, and you're preserved in my head. This is where the anger gets really, really wild. So Vader's anger, his suffering, is what makes him very dangerous, but he never resolves the suffering. His fear of loss leads him to Sidious, right? We saw that. His grief over Padme imprisons him after her death. He was locked up, and her shit was her fault. So his hatred of himself becomes part of the machinery that keeps Darth Vader alive. He doesn't heal at all. He doesn't heal from when he was Anakin and his mom gets killed. Never healed from that. Never healed from being treated like a slave for his young life. He taken trauma and he's weaponized it to make himself a more powerful weapon. But he still has the little boy trauma. It's still there. All that trauma is still there because he never worked through it. Now, the last part is this kind of spiritual independence. The dark side of the Force can determine its own purpose. If you're the wielder, can you really say you're going to do your own thing? Or are you doing what the dark side of the Force wants you to do? It manifests your armor, right? When you're there and, you're really getting to the higher level, you're partially manifesting your armor based on the dark Force, right? So this is it. So a person can overthrow their master while still being governed by everything that the master taught them. So Vader's identity is constructed around submission. Anakin submits to the Jedi Order, and then he submits to Sidious. He changes masters, uniforms, and name, but he never develops a stable self of existence independently of those who give him a specific purpose, right? So this is who Anakin is. Now, 16 is the most demanding test of all of them. Can a person refuse to relish in the dark side? And most of them can't. This is the ultimate mastery of it. Can you possess the power without ultimately needing it? Right? You're not able to sit on the sidelines and chill because you're I gotta have this power. His power says this. I think we're seeing a lot right now in older NBA players, right? Where you're addicted to it and you may have acquired skill and being useful, but it's time to start moving on. And he is not that, right? He wants full control. So with the dark side, you don't get full control with the dark side. You do not. It doesn't. It's not that. So if we look at what's going on in that regard, now Vader can release his suffering, but he can't release his suffering because it's his power, it's his identity. He can never get healed. He would never allow himself to be healed because that means that all of a sudden I don't get to be the wielder of this, this unit. I don't get to have the influence over the culture and the community, for some people, right? And I think he may be one of them. So that's very different. Now, Nihilus cannot release his hunger because almost nothing of himself remains. So when we talk about Nihilus, and I'll get to him a little bit, he doesn't have that outlet, right? Bane seeks to control the parasitic forces overwhelming him, even as those forces threaten to consume him. He wouldn't get rid of, remember that armor that he got that like would protect him from everything, but it was growing, and eventually it was going to consume. So he knew this. So he did relish the fact that he did have power, and he looked at other guys and recognized their power as well. But he was the dude. Like, Sidious can't just he cannot just relish power. He has to have immortality. He has to take it all. He has to tolerate a future where the galaxy continues with him. He is central to the galaxy. He ain't going nowhere, man. That's the whole thing with Sidious. He is not going anywhere. So when we look at these guys, we have to ask, can they control themselves in combat? Can they control the force abilities? Can they convert power into authority? Can they govern their own emotions? A lot of downfall right here. And can they establish an identity of masters, throughout all the wounding and all the appetites? And then can you stop? Can you ever stop using the force? And I would submit to you that no. I think the real question is not simply whether Darth Vader could use the force. It's whether Darth Vader remained after making that choice. Was it still Anakin? And I don't know. We don't know. It seems like the reaction from his family was like pretty much, yeah, but we'll see. So with Vader, we knew right off the bat that this is unresolved suffering. This is what he's going on. He's like a little baby, right? And we see that. This power is real. This is not an argument that he's rigged, but he is among the most dangerous individuals in the galaxy. So I'm always going to be cautious of that. Now, he's also possesses enormous physical power, extraordinary command of the Force, decades of combat experience, tremendous pain tolerance, and the authority to direct military of the Empire. So he's not pretending to be powerful. This dude is powerful, man. He gets it done. But the question isn't whether he possesses power. The question is what the power is doing to him, and whether Bane controls the Foundation or he's just tapping into it. So this is an important thing. Now, Anakin obviously begins his life as an enslaved child, but he's separated from that, from his mother, absorbed by the Jedi Order. He's taught that attachment is dangerous. Like, that's the weirdest thing about the Jedi. Attachment is dangerous. And he's never really given, and this is what I would think they would do. He never had an opportunity to process any of his grief. He just kept rolling into more and more responsibilities, which is crazy. So even before his mom died, killed by some Jawas. I didn't want to call them sand people or anything like that, but he called them some Jawas, right? This is what they were. And they kill his mom. She'd been tortured. Now, his response is not healing. It's not acceptance. It's not even emotional integration. His response is a massacre, right? He kills people responsible. He kills people who had nothing to do with it. He destroys an entire Tusken community because his griefs demand that object. Like, his rage demanded something to smash up when he's like, my mom's, even though you could have came back earlier, but this was the earliest sign of Anakin's relationship with the dark side. Like, you were already like, kind of 1 foot over into the dark side. So don't be reaching back over here now. So what the dark side does is it doesn't resolve Bane's pain or suffering. It makes him sharper. So at this point, he's ready for his apprentice. He's ready for Xana. So what we see with him is that he presents the dark side as a solution to Anakin's suffering. This is what Sidious is suffering. Because you have fear, right? Because you study it. He studies you. He validates you. He actually was offering Anakin the one thing that he didn't want, and the one thing he actually wanted. And this is how the dependency goes. Anakin believes he's choosing the dark side to save Padme. But after Padme dies, the original origin is now gone, but yet you still hear pushing it with the sons. After Vader, Vader remains. After the Queen's gone, after all stuff is gone, Vader's returned. Vader lives. He endures. And Vader doesn't have to return against Sidious. Sidious became the only person capable of giving Vader continued existence of a purpose. And this is what he needed. After Padme was lost, he felt betrayed by the Jedi. He helped destroy the Jedi. He participated in the slaughter of children. He believes is that he has destroyed everything Anakin Skywalker once valued, which is really weird. So returning him to all that comfort would be like outside of what he's trying to do. So it required him to meet like his actions are wrong or not necessary. Sidious manipulated him with the power that he acquired to not save them. He helped produce, the loss. Vader was always at the head of the competition. Like, the remaining Vader is different. He becomes psychological armor. And the suit keeps his body alive, right? It keeps him going. But he has an extremely damaged worldview. As long as Anakin is supposedly dead, Vader doesn't have to heal Anakin's wounds. He can bury them beneath, obedience, all that stuff, but you are not confronting your real core issues. And you never do. And this is why the suffering makes him both highly powerful, but also, you have issues with control. Things often get out from inside that helmet or whatever it is you're wearing, right under that cap. So this is where Vader is. Like, he's at the point where we anticipate it can choke people off for nothing, man. Like, nobody's gonna work with that. So his anger strengthens his connection to the dark side of the Force. His physical pain keeps that anger close to the surface, and his grief makes supplying him with hatred, right? His grief supplies him with all the hatred he needs. Because I'm grieving, so I have a group. I know I hate them because of what they did to my moms, right? And every source there is kind of legitimate. They're both very private and personal, but they're also very private. But he is sharing like himself with us. So we see that Vader's anger strengthens the connection to the dark side. His physical pain keeps the anger close to the surface. So all the time he's got all this pain, and he's like, good, it makes me mad. And if I'm mad, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to get some stuff done. So this is what he does, right? And nobody gets freedom. Like, nobody gets, I think he defeated Jack once, but he wasn't really beaten up. Like, he knew what he was going for, right? So this is the thing. Sidious has a control over Vader that he rides out to the end. Only at the very end is Vader able to even shake that off. So Vader's playing, his pain should not automatically be interpreted as this spiritual reflection or the superior use of the Force, because this is out of control pain. He's not in control. It's actually a manipulation that's going on, right? So his ability to function while suffering is extraordinary. But functioning inside trauma is not the same as transcending trauma. And there's a big difference here. A person can become more disciplined, more productive, more dangerous, even more successful, while remaining completely governed by their own emotions. And that's a lot what we see. That's a case that I make for him. It's like, yes, he's suffering. Yes, he's powerful. And that power makes him very dangerous for all the rest of us. So that's kind of where I would look at Vader as. He's an excellent, powerful Jedi. I don't see him as perfect because, like, you were also a kid and you saw all this trauma, and you did turn out to be the murderer that I would predict you would be. Now, the next part is talking about Bane, because Bane, man, this is my dude right here too, man. Let me get an image up of Bane. I love Bane, right? Wait, man, that's not. Come on, why'd you block me out? All right, let me get rid of this one. Okay, so this is Bane. This is Darth Bane. This is OG who literally started the rule of 2 in the Sith Order, right? He takes all the credit for starting that. So with this guy, he has, a definitively parasitic relationship, right? He takes suffering to a whole nother level. So if Vader was unresolved suffering, Bane literally is a more literal representation of that. Like, literally, once he gets these orbalists, these parasites, they adapt to his body. Now, what they do is they feed upon the dark side flowing in him, but in exchange, they give him this near impenetrable shell of living armor. It protects him from lightsabers and many other conventional weapons. That increases his physical strength, acceleration by healing, and constantly subject him to pain to convert him into greater rage and greater dark side power. On the surface, this sounds like extraordinary advantage, but Bane has acquired armor that does not simply cover his body. It's living on his body. It grows with him, heals, and turns his suffering into additional strength. That's what it's doing. Now, the Orbalists are not equipment. They are parasites. Bane cannot simply remove the armor when he no longer needs it, right? The creatures have attached themselves to his flesh. So this is it's going down, right? So this continually spreads throughout his body, forcing him to contradict protection covering to express to them, before they reach into his wounds, right? He wanted them to know what was up. So their presence causes physical pain on his body. Damaging or killing them can release deadly toxins into his system. So the same creature protecting his life is also capable of destroying it. And this is what makes the Orbalists extremely powerful representations of the dark side. Just that fact that they are destroying, like it's we're gonna amp up your force powers, but yeah, by the way, here's this fine print right here, right? So the dark side, it takes notes, man. Bane is not receiving power from one side and paying another unrelated price. Somehow the source of the power itself are the things that are consuming. So that's kind of what we get. The armor protects him because he has invaded him. The strength of them becomes him because he has the moving force. But you see like what homie looks like now. Like it's a mess, right? And then we start to see it's more difficult. The dark side of the force is made physical. Dark side offers protection, strength, endurance, and ability to survive what would destroy other people, but it allows its users to manipulate pain into aggression and, you know, to everything. Like everything that you would say is bad. Like your teacher's bullying, your classmates bullying you. This is what it is when you're dealing with Bane's world. And I'm going to dip for a sec, guys. I'm going to run out real quick, and I will be right back to run this off. I'm going to go back into Bane, and I'll talk about a couple more